Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our November KTI Unlocking Knowledge Transfer webinar. Really delighted to have you all with us this morning. This webinar series is in its fifth month already, and we have been looking at all different aspects of knowledge transfer and really shining a spotlight on the innovation ecosystem in Ireland to help you understand the supports available to your business. So far, we've gotten really great feedback from all of you, and we've used that feedback to inform the topics to date. So would really encourage your feedback and your questions throughout this morning. Our session this morning is going to focus on the topic of trade secrets, and we've got a really great lineup of speakers today. So they're willing to share their expertise with you, and really would encourage you to tap into that and ask as many questions of them as you possibly can. So just to introduce our speakers, we have Raymond Hegarty. He's CEO of $1 Billion IP Strategy, and he's going to give us an overview of trade secrets and tell us how important they are for our businesses and how you can bring them in to be a central part of your IP strategy. So then we're going to have Hutchinson, Technical Manager from Nutribio Limited. Nutribio is a really fast-growing Irish SME, and they have successfully built an IP strategy and are currently using trade secrets. So Ian is going to share some of his wisdom with us. And then last but not least, we have Joe Doyle. He's the IP Manager at Enterprise Ireland. So Joe's going to give us some information about some state supports that are available to setting up an IP strategy in your business. So before I hand over to our speakers this morning, there's just one or two small little housekeeping items. So just to make you aware that this webinar is being recorded this morning. So if you have any issues with your sound or your connectivity, don't worry about it. It'll all be circulated to you afterwards as you're recording. And also it'll be available on our KTI YouTube channel along with recordings of our previous webinars, so you can enjoy them at your own leisure. Also, just to say that we do encourage questions. As I've said, there is a panel on your screen where you can submit questions at any stage. We have some time set aside at the end of our webinar where we will answer any questions and post those to the panel. So that's the format for this morning. That's kind of enough from me. I'm going to pass over to Raymond Hegarty now for the first presentation of the morning.
Thank you very much, Siobhan. So my name is Raymond Hegarty. I'm an IP coach and IP strategist, and I'm also author of 2 best-selling books on IP strategy. And today I'm going to talk to you briefly about trade secrets. And I'm going to start off with a question for you. And it's about, who is your competitor? So think of the sophistication of your competitors. Is your competitor somebody like Mr. Bean? Or is it the crew from Ocean's 11? And the reason for asking this is that if you remember the Bean movie, he managed to get into the museum and steal the painting because he distracted the security guard. But for Ocean's 11, they have a much more elaborate setup. The security is described as having a security guard, that there's some scary dogs, that there's an impenetrable fence, and that they're using the best surveillance technology. So depending on who your competitor is, there's a different level of sophistication required to protect against the competitors. And intellectual property is a bit like that. You can have many tools available to you, and some of the examples are patents, trademarks, copyright, and trade secrets. And if you rely on just one approach, for example, if you rely heavily on patents, it's a bit like the Mr. Bean scenario. If somebody can undermine your defenses, you don't have other lines of defense. So we recommend a broad sweeping protection with as many ways of protecting your intellectual property as possible. And the one area you may not have thought about is trade secrets. So you may have heard of some examples of trade secrets already, but let me give you, like, the most famous example of trade secrets is the Coca-Cola formula. And that's been protected for more than 130 years now. And here's a photo of the vault where the secret formula is kept. But you don't have to be the Coca-Cola company to have trade secrets. Trade secrets appear in a lot of different ways. You get things like business plans or designs or manufacturing processes, customer lists, test results, algorithms. Those are just some examples of things that would give an edge to your company just because you know the secret and nobody else does. So what are the conditions for a trade secret? There are actually three conditions, and these are all legal requirements. The first one is, and it's in the name, that your information must be secret. The second thing is it must be valuable because it's secret. And thirdly, you must be taking reasonable measures to protect the secret actively yourself. And if we look at each of those three, the first one, the secret, not everything that is confidential is a secret. For example, your managing director's home telephone number might be private information, and that if it leaks out, it's going to be annoying or inconvenient, but it doesn't cost the company money or give a financial advantage to somebody else. And that's what the valuable part is. That the valuable part is that because it's secret, you have a competitive advantage, and that if you lose the secrecy, that you could suffer economically or a competitor could gain economically. And the third part is active protection. If you are not taking steps to protect your own trade secrets, when you go to the court will say, oh, well, you didn't bother to protect them, so why should we help you? So you need to show that you're taking these active measures. And it's not just a matter of taking the active measures, you have to document that you are taking them. And those can be physical measures, for example, locking a filing cabinet or using a swipe card for access to, limited access to special areas. It could be technological, for example, encryption of data or password protection of laptops. It could be legal, for example, non-disclosure agreements or confidentiality agreements. So you have to take those active measures to protect your own trade secrets. And there has been a lot of legal developments in the area of trade secrets in recent years. For many years, trade secrets have been protected, but now you have also in the USA, you have the Defend Trade Secrets Act since 2016. In Europe, you have the Trade Secret Directive, which is now taking effect across all of Europe, and that includes Ireland and also the UK. So even post-Brexit, that the Trade Secret Directive tenets will still apply. Japan in the last 2 years have updated the trade secret protection, and China in the last 3 years have updated their protections 2 times. So you can see that this is a very hot topic, and you have measures available to you that mightn't have been available in the same strength over the years before that. So the question is, that people often ask me, what is the difference between patents and trade secrets? So if you look at patents, you have to register your patent and you have to apply for the protection and pay the fees and register with the patent office. With trade secrets, there's no registration required. The life of a patent is typically 20 years after the application, whereas for trade secrets, there's no application. So there's no life to the patent, there's no limit, as long as you can keep the secret. For patents, publication is required, but for trade secrets, you cannot publish them. And then the technical requirements, patents of a certain nature, they have to be a technological advance, that they have to be novel, and they have to be inventive. Whereas trade secrets have to follow the 3 conditions that I mentioned previously, about them being secret, valuable because they're secret, and that you're taking reasonable measures to protect the secrecy. And if you look at this on a simple level, you might think that, oh yes, trade secrets are easier or they're cheaper. But let's go through each of these as well. The first one, the registration. With patents, because you've registered a patent, you know what the invention is and you know who the inventor is. For trade secrets, sometimes you have to prove in court that there actually was a secret, that the secret exists and you're the owner of the secret. So the lack of registration can be a drawback. We say the patents have a life of only 20 years. So in the case of Coca-Cola, they managed to keep this protection for 130 years. If it was only 20 years, everybody could copy them after 20 years. The difficulty with trade secrets, though, is you don't have certainty about the life. If the trade secret leaks out, you lose it. So you don't even have this guaranteed 20 years. So you need to be careful to protect the secrecy. For all of the academics on the line here, I know that you really have a lot of pressure to publish. And the fact that you can't publish it could be a drawback for your trade secret as well. So there are positives and negatives about trade secrets. But really, I want you to consider trade secrets as being a very powerful tool in your IP strategy portfolio. So we'll keep the questions until the end, but if you do have questions that you want to take up afterwards, you can contact me on LinkedIn, or if you can't remember my name, just Google IP Coach and you'll find me, or go to my website, www.billiondollarip.com. But now I'd like to hand you over to our next speaker, Ian Hutchinson, who will tell you some very practical examples of trade secrets in what he's doing. Thank you very much.
Raymond, thank you also to Siobhan for inviting me to speak this morning. As introduced, I am the technical manager with a company called Nutribio Limited. We're based here down in Cork. For those of you familiar with the city, we're on the north side of the river there, just opposite the Blackrock Castle and Observatory. So we've a lovely view looking across the river there, out across to the castle. So in terms of who we are part of a group called the Cooperative Animal Health Group. We are owned jointly by Dairygold and Glanbia, two big agri-businesses you'd all be familiar with here in Ireland. And the focus of our business is on animal nutrition. Nutribio is an animal nutrition manufacturer, predominantly in the vitamin and premix area. So vitamin and mineral premixes. So as Raymond gave the example there earlier on of the Coca-Cola industry and the trade secrets around that, we would often give the example of our business as a bit like the Coca-Cola premix. So we would manufacture premixes and ship these to feed mills around the country from a domestic perspective. And then from our international business side of things, we would be focusing more on specific nutritional supplements for specific nutritional purposes for a range of animals. So from the domestic business, we're focused on ruminant nutrition or on cows basically, and for the international business, it's more across the board: pigs, cows, other sectors as well. So here's just some numbers up about our business. We have a 60-year history in the group, and Nutribio itself has been in existence for the last 22 years, and we're one of Ireland's largest animal mineral supplements businesses. As you see some numbers there around the figures on our business, I suppose our export business has grown over the last 7 to 8 years, where we're now serving over 30 countries worldwide. And just a little bit of information there on our intellectual property side of things. We have approximately over 40 intellectual property files open now on our business. So as I go through the presentation here, I'll just explain a little bit more about our journey, understanding IP, and obviously then into the protection side of things on the trade secrets. So as I say, our IP journey. So we started back in 2017, I suppose more of an awareness side of things really. Myself and a few colleagues started attending Enterprise Ireland and Knowledge Transfer Ireland IP seminars, many I suppose similar to this one, around understanding IP, the importance of IP to a business, and how to go about developing a system of protection. So following this, our interest and our understanding of the subject grew, and we recognised the importance of it towards our business. So at that stage, we decided to take advantage of a new scheme that Enterprise Ireland were running called the IP Plus grant, and we applied for that successfully in 2018. And that the purpose of that grant, which and that scheme, which Joe will talk about in a while, was really around supporting our education and development in the area of intellectual property and our understanding of that. So then for the next 2 years, we engaged with an IP expert, Donald O'Connell, Chorlton Innovation Services, and he basically took on a program as our virtual IP manager or our remote IP manager to come in and educate key personnel in the business in the different forms of IP and the management of these. So I suppose just a little bit on my own background. I'm animal science is my I suppose education and career path. As you saw there on the numbers in Nutribio, we're not a huge business, 40 employees, so we don't have a dedicated legal department. So this is why we're non-experts in the field, taking on and understanding more of the nature of IP and the importance again to our business. And that 2-year period of our education and work with Donald O'Connell was very important for us and has grown our understanding to a place where we are now. So in the last, I suppose, six months, year, we've gone on to the implementation stage, and we've created our trade secret database. We're now working with others around IP pools, trade secret pools in our innovation process, and this has really facilitated a lot of collaboration and new business relationships across the board, both domestically and our international business. So but that's a rough outline of the journey. I suppose to focus a bit more then on the education process and where we got to with that. So the first stage that we went through was awareness, and as I say, coming from a pretty low base in the company with no specific legal skills or detailed understanding of intellectual property, this was important so we could understand the different forms of IP and how they apply to our business. And as we went through this awareness phase, we then came to understand that really most of the vast majority of the intellectual assets in our business were in the form of trade secrets. So like that with the example of the Coca-Cola recipe, for a lot of our customers and our contract manufacturing customers, they have secret recipes that they want to keep secret, and we're entrusted with those as the manufacturer in order to do so. So our contract manufacturing customers would include multinational nutrition companies, and also some tier one pharmaceutical companies with nutritional products. So obviously some sensitive information in there. And really then I suppose we looked after our audit, we looked at the process development phase in terms of building and implementing a robust fit for purpose IP process. So that was around introducing the protections necessary and the review process in order to make sure that both our own trade secrets and those of our customers were sufficiently protected and managed through the business. This then, I suppose, as we went through, we transformed this into the portfolio management stage, and as we say, validation of these intellectual assets and the ongoing management of them. The protections we introduced then was largely around our trade secret database, and also specific actions within our business. So obviously there's various areas of the business that would need to be aware of the trade secrets. For example, the formulation and compliance staff to understand the recipes and to maintain our production facility correctly. And also, I suppose, then the purchasing team as well would need to be aware for buying the raw materials. So in each of those areas, we had systems in place that the people involved understood the nature of the trade secrets and the importance of protecting them, both for ourselves and our customers as well. So the last phase of our IP education process really was getting the understanding of our assets and the intellectual assets of our customers, how to protect them, how to manage them. We then developed a strategy, I suppose, in terms of the long-term aspect of our IP strategy. And really that's more, I've talked about our customers' IP and trade secrets and our own trade secrets. And this then is the longer-term strategy is about developing a strategy for us to leverage our own IP to our competitive advantage. And in our case, this was very much around our trade secrets, around animal nutrition, around, let's say, the ethnography of animal nutrition and animal husbandry. And I suppose what we were looking to do then was to collaborate and really to facilitate collaborative innovation with other animal nutrition businesses and businesses outside our immediate circle as well, both nationally and internationally, to come together to bring solutions forward for Irish farmers and for the international markets. So that's the kind of, I suppose, a rough outline of the development process through the way. And to move on, I suppose, specifically onto the trade secret side of things. So as Raymond's already mentioned, a trade secret is information that is secret, it has commercial value because it's secret, and obviously it's been subject to reasonable steps to keep it secret. So we're going through then our process of understanding our trade secrets and protecting them. So first of all, as I say, the audit, we identified our trade secrets and confidential information, and processes were established to protect this information. This really reinforced the importance and the value of the trade secrets and confidentiality to our customers and our collaborators. And this led to as I say, the development of our trade secrets database. So that we basically set it up with secured, controlled access to a limited number of people in our organization. And this database basically tracks and logs the creation of trade secrets, and also the updating and the sharing of trade secrets. So we found that to be very important information and very useful information as well, in order to say that if we were, for example, looking at establishing a new collaboration in the innovation space, we would have a log then of who was involved in that from our side of the business, who we were working with from our collaborators, and also how and when the trade secrets were shared. So we were able to create a log of this, and obviously what protection mechanisms were in place for the sharing of those trade secrets, for example, NDAs and other mechanisms as well. This database also gives us clear identification of the ownership of the trade secrets and the actions required on them. So you might need to review trade secrets once every 6 months, a year, or even more regularly in some cases, to ensure the protection is adequate and any, as we say, any sharing that has taken place. Also, it's important to maintain the understanding of the ownership of these trade secrets, we feel, to have complete clarity on is it our trade secret, is it one of our contract manufacturing customers, or is it maybe an innovation partner that owns the trade secret. And finally, one of the important aspects then of the trade secret database that we developed is around the visualization for the reporting and the analysis of the of our trade secrets. So for board meetings, for management meetings, we're able to simply pull off and give some nice visual charts and documentation around if you like our sharing, our protection, and the status of our trade secrets. So then I suppose the other thing we really felt and is really visible to us internally, and I think we would have seen it with our partners as well, would be a culture change within Nutribio. Our core team, as I say, with myself and maybe 3 or 4 others of the core team in the business, have been trained by our IP consultant, Doyle, and we are maintaining an ongoing internal training. So those of us that have been trained now are bringing other members of the team up to speed, as we say, in terms of some of the different elements of the business, to make sure we have a solid understanding of our intellectual assets, our trade secrets, and the protection and mechanisms we have around that. We also have a new approach that we brought to customers and collaborators. As I mentioned before, there our IP pools, or our trade secret pools, are really a step change for us in terms of our innovation approach, and we're already seeing the fruits, if you like, from these with some of the collaborations we have in this area. Bring, as I say, new technology into verify existing technology for farmers domestically and overseas in our global markets. So this is really where we're going. And I think, as I say, we've noticed our culture change ourselves as well. And I think maybe speaking on behalf of some of our partners and collaborators, we would have brought a different approach to discussions we've had with them. And we've noticed, if you like, a change in the tone of discussion when we've been able to show our understanding and our expertise around the protection of their trade secrets and confidential information as well. So in terms of then the benefits to our business, I suppose hopefully you've been able to get a feeling for it as I've been talking through the presentation here, but primarily it's really about the identification and protection of our trade secrets. And we would see that's a position to maintain our competitive advantage. So as I say there, when our partners and collaborators can see that we, if you like, we speak the language and we're able to understand and protect their trade secrets as a contract manufacturer, that's a very important part of our business. And also, as I say, in the innovation space as well, that we're suitable partners who understand and can protect confidential information. This then facilitates increased collaboration and security for our customers and partners. And it also really, we feel, is the foundation for a very robust innovation structure to protect valuable ideas and new concepts, and really to foster that collaborative approach that we look for in our innovation process. It's also helping us to develop global business through technology transfer and international collaboration. So we had some success last year with a technology transfer project that we're working on in East Africa, and that's brought significant new business to us, and we continue to build on that collaboration. So overall, I suppose it's really about the growth of our business through an innovation and collaboration focused approach, taking care of our own and our partners' confidential information and trade secrets, and understanding why they're important and how to protect them. So in summary, I suppose, look, we would see this as an area of growth and development. As I say, coming from a very low base, we've implemented our IP or trade secret management system and database. And we feel this is driving our innovation, collaboration and growth. This couldn't have happened without the support of Enterprise Ireland. And we're extremely grateful for the scheme and for, in particular, for Joe and his work administering that scheme and assisting us not only just through the scheme, but regular updates and meetings with Joe to help foster the growth of our IP knowledge and our IP strategy. And also, as I say, Donald O'Connell in Chorlton Innovation Services was really very important for the project, and has proven to be highly valuable for us in expanding our understanding of the topic. We've a lot done. We've a lot more to do. We've the ongoing management and administration of the IP database, of our trade secret database. Putting it together is good, and it looks nice, but it's no use if we don't keep using it. So we're looking to do that. And as I say, further expansion and development of our IP pool agreements, our trade secret pool agreements, to foster more innovation and more collaboration. So I suppose really to wrap up, I'd be happy to give more detailed feedback on our experience for anyone that wants it. My email address is there on the screen. And obviously, we welcome any new business and opportunities to collaborate for anyone that might be interested in an opportunity in the animal nutrition space. Thank you for your attention, and I'd like to pass over now to Joe Doyle.
Hello, Ray. Thanks, Ian, and thank you very much for the plug as well. So good morning, everybody. My name is Joe Doyle. I hope you can see my screen. Siobhan, can you confirm if it's been viewed properly? Can you hear me?
Joe, I think you're in presenter view, so you might need just change, because it's showing the next slide as well.
That's what I wanted to check. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect.
That better?
Yes, that's working now.
Okay, great. So good morning, everybody. My name is Joe Doyle. I'm the IP manager in Enterprise Ireland. So I'm going to speak very briefly to you this morning, because you've heard from the experts already. But really what I want to talk about is try and put this all in the context of what we're supporting our clients to do. So very brief introduction to why this is important. So we have a lot of client companies, and a lot of those companies are SMEs of one form or another. And we all know that SMEs are very important to the economy. But this research here that I've summarized on this slide makes a point that there's a subset of SMEs that exhibit very high growth characteristics, or at some point in their life cycle they experience high growth. And these companies tend to have certain characteristics. They tend to be innovative and risk-taking. They tend to be exporting, internationally active. They've stretched resources, largely due to the high growth nature. And they're also based on human capital, research and development, and intangible assets, otherwise known as intellectual property. So the key point here is that in supporting companies and supporting economic development in Ireland, we need to try to identify these companies, and we need to support them appropriately. And one of the things that we need to do to support them, as Ian described, is to help them to develop an IP strategy so that they're capturing that value that represents their scalability and deploying it to grow their business. So the way we do this is we have recently launched a grant scheme. When I say recently, it's, I suppose, in its second year now. And the grant scheme is called the IP Strategy Offer. And just to give an idea of what the purpose behind that is, we, as many of you will already know, we already support companies around research, development, and innovation. The IP Strategy Offer is brought in as a complement to that. So the companies can get an additional financial aid to help them to develop an IP strategy assignment around their R&D activities, and to build that IP strategy into their growth plan of the company, and to augment their innovation strategy. The scheme has two main objectives. One is to help the companies to access the external expertise to develop, to identify what the IP needs are, and then to help them to address those IP needs. And the second objective is to develop the internal IP awareness and capability. I hope, as Ian demonstrated, that that's a key part of an IP strategy, is companies taking as much ownership as possible of their own IP strategy. So very briefly, the details of the scheme are, it's available to Irish-owned companies that are clients of Enterprise Ireland, local enterprise offices with Ross na Gaeltachta. that are involved in an international, they're manufacturing or service companies and internationally trading. They have to be R&D active. We're intentionally targeting R&D active companies because this is where the most valuable innovation and IP will come from. And the companies need to have a need for IP support. So there are 2 grant schemes. There's a small one, which is really just to get companies on the road of developing their IP strategy, and a larger one to do a more detailed IP strategy assignment to help develop and embed the IP strategy in the company, as you saw in the example of Nutribio. So we're not prescriptive about what the company does in terms of their own IP strategy. We try to pass over to the company to identify what their needs are, to identify the expertise that they need to develop that, and then to undertake the assignment to do it. And I think trade secrets are a great place to start that journey. Trade secrets, everybody's got something that could potentially be a trade secret if the effort is made to keep it a secret. And so if you're not sure what your IP strategy might look like, it's a great place to start, because if you take the effort to protect your trade secrets, then you can review that on an ongoing basis. And from that pool, you can identify potentially patentable inventions as well, and to patent some of those. And so you build that multi-layered IP strategy where you have trade secrets and patents and other forms of IP, as Raymond described earlier in his talk. So that's what we're trying to support companies and encourage companies to do with the IP strategy offer. You will, if you want more information on it, my contact details are on this slide, which I think you'll get after the webinar. There are also links there, embedded links, where you can, send us an expression of interest if you want to just check it out, or you want it. The website is there as well if you want to find more details about the scheme. So I think that's all I have to say, and I think then I should pass it over to Siobhan.
Great, thank you very much, Joe. I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome back our speakers from this morning. So we have Ray, Ian and Joe, and we will go through the questions that you have all been sending in. And also, please do continue to send in your questions. I will ask them as quickly as I can read them. They're popping up on my screen right now. So the first question, Joe, is for yourself. It's about the IP strategy offer. So would participating in EU-funded projects qualify as trading internationally as a prerequisite for accessing the IP strategy?
So it could potentially, yes. So there are 2 things about that. One is a lot of noise on the line. I don't know if that's coming from my side. Can you hear me okay? Okay, so it's better now. So there are 2 aspects. There's the being R&D active. So if a company is doing, EU-funded R&D, that's an example of R&D activity. So we just need to see sort of indicators of the sort of R&D that's going on in the company. In terms of international trading, so companies, that's to ensure that we're targeting companies that have the greatest scalability. So they're not domestically focused. So if you're doing R&D, it's with a view to some international trading activity, maybe in the future. And so that's okay. So the key thing about IP is doing it as early as possible in the life cycle. It can be too late to protect your IP after you're already in the market with your product. So we very much are taking a long-term view.
Brilliant, and we will be circulating the contact details of our speakers after this webinar as well. So we would encourage anyone with questions specifically around the IP strategy offer to get in touch with Joe directly, and he can answer any questions about eligibility criteria after the webinar. So there's quite a lot of questions coming in around the subject of collaboration and trade secrets. So one of the questions I have here, and I think, Ray, I'm going to start with you, but are you aware of any trade secrets that can be jointly owned? We're aware that you can have patents that are jointly owned, you can have jointly owned copyright, but what about trade secrets? Is it possible for jointly owned trade secrets to arise?
Of course it's possible, and I'm glad that you talked about collaboration. because very often something like a patent, it is personal to the inventors and that the company that they assign it to, that it belongs to them. Trade secrets tend to be a little bit more nebulous, but the important thing is that the world is moving towards an era of open development, open cooperation. So the collaboration is an important issue to consider. You have to think, first of all, that if you have trade secrets of your own, before you go into a collaboration, when you have, for example, a lot of people enter into NDAs, but they're unaware of the controls that the party on the other side may have on how they look after your trade secrets. And on the other side as well, you need to think as well about how your team will respect the trade secrets of people that you're collaborating with as well. So that's why, and Ian was talking about the training. Training is very important because people need to understand the importance of trade secrets, protecting your own trade secrets and protecting other people's trade secrets. And when you go into collaboration, you can be opening up those trade secrets. The ownership of it, very often, it's important to lay out the parameters before you enter into this collaboration as to who will own these jointly developed IP, whether it is formal IP like patents, copyrights, maybe trademarks, or more informal IP like the trade secrets. But you should have a clear understanding before you go in there that if you develop something together, does one party own it? Does the other party own it? Or will both parties own what was jointly developed? So you just go in there very clearly on that and make sure that your team members respect the ground rules on that.
Okay, we have quite a few questions coming in for yourself, Ian. There's a lot of startups out there that are looking for investment at the moment, and they are considering their IP strategy as a really important part of approaching potential investors. So how viable is it for a startup to use trade secrets to protect their IP? And how have you found that approaching potential investors when using your trade secrets as a cornerstone of your IP strategy?
I suppose it's probably something that we, direct question from startups. It's not really the area that we're a well-established business, and it's kind of maybe a slightly different scenario that we're approaching, than we're coming from. I suppose I would look at it from as I described in the presentation, really from an innovation and from contract manufacturing customer point of view. And that it is, we found it to be extremely important in these discussions to show, one, that we are able to understand and protect our, obviously our collaboration customers, but also our own, and to have that understanding going forward, that our trade secrets and our ideas are protected in these in these approaches. Raymond, maybe you might be able to maybe give a bit of information there from the startup perspective, and from an investment side of things.
Yes, for startups, one thing that I didn't say this strongly in the presentation, but one real advantage of trade secrets for startups is that a patent application takes time to go through. That you have to write up the idea, you need to go to your patent attorney, you need to file the application. It may take a number of years before the patent is granted. A trade secret, from the time that you have the idea, and as long as it's secret and it's valuable, you already have the protection of it. So a lot of the startups who are going into this, the first thing they have in their IP bank is trade secrets. And even the patent applications they do, for the first 18 months of your patent application process, it's not published. So it still is an internal secret to your company. So trade secrets are very important for startups from the point of view of it's the first IP that they can have. And it's something that, as Ian said as well, that when you go through your stock taking at the start as to what assets you have, you can be very pleasantly surprised that you already have built up a lot of IP assets that are not in the form of formal IP assets like patents or trademarks. So that's very good. Now, from an investor point of view, most investors don't get very excited about trade secrets. The investors want to know what's locked in, and they seem to understand patents better than trade secrets. You also need to bear in mind, for example, the venture capitalists will very rarely sign an NDA. So from that point of view, you need to have a unified IP strategy that you can think of what can you lock up as a patent application, what is a trademark, what is a copyright, and then what you have as trade secrets. But trade secrets are very strong because of the protections, the legal protections come in recent years. For example, in the USA, It's not just a civil offence where you can get financial compensation. It's also a criminal offence if somebody is found to be in breach of espionage rules in the USA. So you could have somebody going to prison for breaching your trade secrets, and that's a very, very strong disincentive, and it can even up the power balance between a small startup and a very large company that they're dealing against.
So somewhat related to Raymond's point there, but there's a question coming in about giving staff access to your trade secrets, and then how do you deal with those staff members moving on from the company? So is there any advice around staff movement and access to trade secrets?
I suppose I can speak from maybe Raymond, if I go first from a practical point of view. So one of the measures that we took very early on in our IP education process was reviewing all our contracts, for new employees, and making sure we had the appropriate IP clauses in there, so that the employees very clearly understood, that anything developed in their as part of their employment with us was owned by the company. And that it was to be kept secret and managed, and obviously, everything associated with that we discussed during the webinar. We also, I suppose, took the additional step of training our technical team. So I suppose a lot of our trade secrets are really kind of evolved and focused on the technical side of our business. As I say, our own and also our customers and our collaborators. Trade secrets would kind of come through the technical team. So we took the additional step of a specific, if you like, agreement that was signed by all members of the technical team, that went through the process of understanding what the trade secrets are, agreeing not to share, not to discuss, not to go forward in that. So that's, if you like, training the employees while they're within the company and with that contract. And we've actually come across a scenario recently where one of our technical team moved on to another business within the animal nutrition sector, and in that case as well, we simply took the step of if you like, just a debrief on that team member, just say, look, this is our trade secret policy, and this is this. So nothing overt or nothing strong, but just a reminder of the training that member had, and also of the clauses in the contracts that we do have. So that's how we've dealt with it. Raymond, I don't know if you have anything else on that?
Yes, I think that's very sensible. Yeah, the first thing that, as Ian said, that you do is do a quick cleanup of all of your employee contracts to make sure that there is consistency with them, and that the importance of employee confidentiality, about employee created IP, that all of those things are dealt with consistently in all of the employee contracts. And when you're doing that as well, don't forget, the founders might have been left out of that. So even at the founder level, make sure that the founders also have that, or else it is a difficulty when investors come along to say, well, what are we investing in, and are the founders in or out? And you need to make sure that those are looked after properly. I agree with you, Ian, that an important part of this as well is having an exit interview for employees as they're leaving, so that you can remind them that even though their employment has ended, that some obligations that are in their employment contract will continue after they leave. You also, it's not just the employee, that if the employee goes to another company, the other company also cannot illegally acquire your trade secrets. So you may end up having to inform the other company that the employee who is going from your company to their company has valuable trade secrets, and that you want to make sure that they're not abusing your trade secrets. And the corollary of that is, from an HR point of view, you need to be very careful when you're taking in employees from a competitor, that you're not bringing in a trade secret problem into your company. Because you can go through the steps of employing somebody, a very expensive knowledge employee, because they tend to be paid higher. You may have headhunter fees, you may have a lot of upfront costs in bringing them in. And if you end up in legal difficulties about this, you may have somebody on your books for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months that you can't even put to work because of a trade secret dispute with a competitor. So those things, you need to be very careful of the hygiene of your HR on the potential of bringing in a problem that could disrespect somebody else's trade secrets as well.
Okay, there's quite a lot of questions coming in, but I'm just conscious that we are coming up to our time. So what I'm going to do is I will ask any questions that I have here to our panelists following the webinar, and I'll make sure that everyone gets an answer to their questions. And there's quite a few coming in on the topics of staff and on collaboration and on the IP strategy offer itself. So we can compile some answers from our panelists and circulate that in our useful resources after the webinar. So I'm just going to ask our panelists just very quickly to give us some final comments that you want people to take away from this webinar. Any final pieces of advice that you want to give to our audience? Ray, I'll start with you since you were first speaker this morning.
Okay, even though I was the first speaker, the last speaker was Joe, and what I would say is that the first thing is to take your first step. And I know that Joe has got this wonderful offer for people to do IP strategy, and it's a really good support for people to get into it. And a lot of them, I know from talking the background, that people talk to Joe and they think about it, but they never actually make the application. So, you know, in the words of Nike, just do it. So make a start on this. And any journey begins with a single step. So take that first step, apply for all of the supports that you can get to do this, and build it step by step. And anything that you can do is an improvement on what you're doing already will help your business.
Ian, is there any comments from yourself, from your perspective, that you'd like to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I suppose a couple of things really. So first of all, I think, as I said through the presentation, we came from a low base, and I think the important thing is not to be overawed by maybe the scale of what's in front of you. We I suppose, you know, take it small steps at a time. Get out, go to webinars. This is a good start. Obviously, the one today, conferences, seminars, that kind of stuff. There is a lot of information out there. As I say, the scheme with Enterprise Ireland was brilliant for us. It was much more than just financial support. I think the network and the knowledge we developed through Joe has been very, very valuable. And I suppose the final thing really is that, look, this really is it has been critical for us over the last 2 or 3 years to grow and develop our business. So I think if you're looking at working with others, collaborating with customers or innovation partners, then we would see it as essential now to have a good understanding of IP and a management system in place.
And Joe, finally yourself.
So apart from reiterating what the two guys just said and agreeing with that, I would say that, you know, after this webinar, you know, if you just took 2 minutes to sit back and think, you know, where's the value in my company? You know, put yourself in the shoes of an investor or whoever, or collaborator, or whoever it is, and where's the value in my company? And I think you'll come to the conclusion that it's not in the couple of computers and the water cooler and the tables and chairs. It's in the intangible stuff, right? And if you don't know what that is, then you're going to find it difficult to communicate that to an investor. So if you want to start on that journey, it's never too early to start. Start now, and maybe start with your trade secrets. What is it that you would not like a competitor to get their hands on? What's your secret sauce, as they call it? What would you not like to see in a competitor's product? And start to think about that as an intangible asset of your business, and do what you can to protect it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much to all our speakers this morning. I think we'll all agree that they've given us really valuable insights into this area of trade secrets. There's obviously a lot of interest in this from the amount of questions that have been coming in this morning. So we'd really like to be able to share the presentations after this event, and also we will be giving you extra information to answer any of the questions that have been coming in. From a KTI perspective, the feedback that we get following these webinars are very valuable to us. This webinar series is being set up to give you all the most relevant information to your businesses, to really help you get an awareness of the supports that are out there to help you on your innovation journey. So we'd really welcome any comments that you have on the webinar series and on the presentations from our speakers this morning. I'm sure they'll agree that they would welcome any feedback that you may have or any comments that you may have on the content that have been delivered this morning. So with that, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I'm sure we all have lots of valuable meeting time ahead of us today, but I just want to say that our next webinar in the KTI series is going to be on the 1st of December, and we're going to be looking back on 2020 and looking at how the system, the KT system in Ireland has responded to the many challenges that we've all faced this year. So we hope you'll join us again on the 1st of December. So thank you again to all our speakers, to Raymond Hegarty, to Ian Hutchinson and to Joe Doyle this morning, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.